hello. My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. So I've got the start of what is going to be a series of 3 videos, and I will actually finish this. We'll finish this series. I won't just start it and leave it hanging the way I do most of my series. I'll come back to them. I'll finish them eventually. Anyway, this one is just 3, and I already have planned when they're going to happen. So, and that is a series on DNFing. I broke it up into DNFing books, DNFing authors, and DNFing series. And I have no problem DNFing. I will put a book down and not have a problem with it, but I know that a lot of people do have an issue with not finishing a book that they've started, and I guess if you want to know how to DNF a book, maybe I could do a different video on that. So okay, maybe I'll add a 4th video in here. But I would encourage you to think about embracing this, because my motto is that life is too short to be reading anything that you're not enjoying, unless you have to read this for work or for school. This is supposed to be about your enjoyment. If you really need to know what happens, go look it up on the internet. We have the internet now, and it can help you with knowing what happens. So anyway, I really want to encourage people to not finish books that they're not enjoying. But I thought I would kind of get into my criteria for what makes me DNF a book, an author, or a series. Today we're going to do books. And yeah, I just thought I'd kind of talk about what makes me say nope, not doing it, not keeping on, I'm just gonna give up. So the number one thing, and I've noticed this as I've been on BookTube and had to explain myself to someone, you guys kind of, why I would DNF a book, the number one reason is actually writing style, which kind of surprised me when I thought about it, because I don't consider myself to be a style queen, if you will. I guess I definitely was at one point in my life, right? When I was younger, I fancied myself to be quite the literature connoisseur, and was very, a lot more up in my feelings about, I can't read this drivel, whatever. Oh my God, I was so embarrassing as a teenager. Anyway, so I did have that problem at one point in my life. And I kind of unclenched from that over time. And then by the time I actually ended up doing my thesis on romance, that was a huge breakthrough for me, because I realized oh, okay, you really, it doesn't have to be a high style to be a good style. And I think, though, what making this list made me realize is that I do still have strong feelings about the style of writing. I just don't expect it to be as highfalutin as I used to. So I want the style to be in alignment with my expectations for the genre. So if this is literary fiction, that prose better be fucking good for me to keep reading 200 pages about your inner thoughts and feelings, okay? It's gotta be pretty good. Or conversely, if it's a mystery, I just want it to be clear. I want to know what is happening. I don't want you to be cute with me. I don't want you to keep me at arm's length. That's a big one. That is something that will make me DNF very quickly, is if I feel like the writing style is holding me at arm's length. That is a pet peeve of mine. I really don't like that. Again, unless it's it feels like a real choice and it's sort of like a literary book, I just think that it's bad writing. So anyway, I want the style to match the genre. Or if it's not going to match the genre, it needs to not match it in a very interesting way, basically, is how I feel about that. So really, that's the number one reason that I will DNF a book. The more I reflected on it was, I don't like the style, it just doesn't click with me. A good example of something like that would be Nevernight. I read that, or I tried to read that last month and DNF'd because the style just was not clicking with me. So I either doesn't click with me, or I just feel like it's not appropriate for the genre. So a good example of that would be something like literary fiction that is not actually literary. Or, another DNF from last month was Party Girls Die in Pearls. I just found the tone to be way too self-satisfied and kind of cutesy in a way that did not work for me. It was like a mystery that had the tone of chick lit, and I did not enjoy that. Another reason that I will DNF a book is that I feel like the characters are hateable, and it is a character-driven story. Now, at some point, I'm gonna have a long discussion about the whole unlikable character thing, whatever. I don't have a problem with unlikable characters. I actually like unlikable characters often. So for instance, in The Hazelwood, the protagonist in that, a lot of people are basically the reason they didn't like that book was because she was unlikable. And I was I don't have any problem with this. That's fine. She to me was unlikable the same way that Holden Caulfield is unlikable in Catcher in the Rye. So it's not that. It's that if I have to be in the person's head all the time, this is, I guess, especially hateable POV characters, and it's a character-driven story where I need to care about them on some level for the book to work, I will give up eventually. Now, one that I did not actually give up on, but I did not continue in the series, so I guess I could bring that up then. But The Magicians is a great example of this. Whoever that little shit's name is who we're following. I hated Quentin, that asshole. God, I hated him. I could not get into that series because I just hated him so much. So like, that's why I DNF'd that series, and I should have just DNF'd that book, but I kept being like, oh, maybe it'll get better. So anyway, hateable characters are another reason I will DNF. If I really, like, if the book working is predicated on me caring about that character, then it's a problem. Similarly, if the plot is boring and it's a plot-driven book, like, if I'm not into the plot and that's the only thing that's got going, like, maybe it's like, usually this is in something like genre fiction or like popular fiction, like, I'm not here for this beautiful writing, right? Like, the writing's not that great. I'm not here for these like amazingly intricate and like detailed characters, because like that's not the focus. If the focus of the book is the plot and I do not give a fuck about the plot, then why am I still reading this? This is a little harsh because I didn't hate this book by any means. it didn't capture my attention enough for me to finish because it was a library book. If I had owned it, I probably would have sucked it up and read it since I paid for it. But The Widows of Malabar Hill by Sujata Massey, that was just one where the plot was not that interesting to me. Like that, and again, that's a bad example because it's not that it was a bad plot, it just didn't interest me. In general, I'm talking about, usually if I DNF for plot, it's because either it's boring, it's something crazy happens that I'm like, what? This makes no sense. Whatever. If the main thing I'm here for is a plot and you can't deliver on that, like what are we doing here? Like, why am I wasting my time? And then the next two go together, and I think this will be a recurring theme in this DNF series, and that is if it's a how book and I don't care about the how, or if it's a what book and I don't care about the what. What I mean by that is that how books to me are books where you kind of know what's gonna happen, and your investment in the book is how you get there. Romance and mystery are both great examples of this. In a mystery, you pretty much know that there's going to be a dead body or a crime or there's something you have to solve, and it's going to get solved by the end, right? There's not necessarily that much suspense usually in whether or not that's going to happen. If it's a romance, there's a couple and they're going to get together by the end. There's not that much suspense about whether or not that's going to happen. What you are there for is the how. In a what book you care about actually what is going to happen scene to scene to scene. And I think that literary fiction tends to be more of a what book because there's not as many like there's not as much of like a formula as to the plot, so you kind of don't necessarily know where it's going. So if it's a how book, like if I'm reading a romance and I don't give a shit about whether or not these two people end up together or how that happens, I will DNF it. If it's a literary book and I don't care about the what, like I don't care what happens to the person involved, I will give up on it. Oh, I think nonfiction tends to be pretty what driven too, because you're there for information. So like if I get to a point where I'm like, I don't care about this information anymore, then like I will also DNF at that point. And then just finally, I should also say that sometimes it's not the book, it's me. A lot of times it's not the book, it's me. And I would actually put The Widows of Malabar Hill more in that category. Sometimes it's not the right time, or sometimes it's just not as good as the other things that are competing for my attention, or sometimes I'm not in the right mood for it. There's a lot of context, and I think I mentioned this before, that I have DNFs, but then I also strikeouts. So for a book that I think that I could like it in a different context, I put that in a strikeout category, and I will come back to it. Magpie Murders is a good example of this. I had a strike with that because it wasn't hitting me the right way, but I was like, I see that I could potentially like this. So I put it on hold. And I do consider that different than a straight up DNF. So yeah, those are some reasons why I DNF individual books. Some food for thought. Let me know what makes you DNF a book, or if you are somebody who can't DNF a book, maybe tell me why, and maybe I can try to persuade you to just do it, because I think you will feel very empowered if you will let yourself do it. But anyway, that's just my opinion. But yeah, let me know what you think below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below. And I think that will do it before I fade into total darkness here for some reason. Hopefully this is not as bad for you guys as it is for me. But anyway, I hope you guys are having a great day, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!